Next on Currents News, a church vandal is at it again. Surveillance video catches the so-called woman in white returning to a Queens church for the third time. Her eyes were set on the Mother Mary. The city's top faith leaders pushing to close the largest jail complex in the country, Rikers Island. They took to the steps of the state's Supreme Court. Thousands of people are trapped in their own homes in Texas. Rescues are underway as Storm Imelda continues to flood the streets. Plus, is God's creation confined to planet Earth? The United States Navy says this video is the real deal. The news starts right now. The video is new, but the criminal is the same. She's attacked a Queens parish before and now is trying to topple a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Good evening, I'm Tamara Lane. She didn't succeed in knocking down the Blessed Mother, but she's caused a lot of damage at St. Gerard Majella Church in Hollis. Now there's a reward for her capture. Currents News' Emily Druby has the latest from the otherwise quiet parish neighborhood.
This statue of the Blessed Mother, the latest target of a criminal who's damaged the Shrine Church of St. Gerard Majella in Hollis, Queens twice before. In this new surveillance video, the woman tried to knock the statue to the ground but couldn't topple it over. The pastor, Father Joseph Jude Gannon, is worried that the attacks on his parish are getting worse.
She seems to now have a pattern and a fixation with Mary and with us in particular. But it is something that's very scary because it does seem to be a type of escalation.
Father Gannon is talking about the other times the vandal caused damage at the church. The security camera recorded the first attack 2 Sundays ago when the woman ripped down a large church sign and tore the parish's name from these potted plants. Then before dawn this Monday, she went after rosary stations in the same outdoor shrine where Mary's statue is located. About 20 of the stations were totally destroyed and the broken pieces tossed into the trash. The vandal also ripped out parts of the church's sprinkler system and a stairway handrail. Altogether, Father Gannon estimates the vandal has caused more than $12,000 of damage. He's hopeful she will be safely caught before anything more happens. Police have increased patrols in the area and wanted flyers have been put up. Tony and Adam, who work next door to the church, were disgusted to hear about the latest incident.
Father Gannon tried to beautify the neighborhood, and to see somebody do that, it's like a hate crime against him and the community and the church.
You know, he redid it. He made a little park for the kids to play out here because there's really nothing out here for them, and they're just destroying it.
Parishioner Rose Dunn says she's disappointed the woman targeted the statue.
That's terrible. That's why I say I pray the Lord to catch her.
It's not the first time this church has been targeted. Another individual was arrested for stealing thousands of dollars worth of guitars from the church last year. Father Gannon says despite these attacks, the faith in the parish remains strong. In Hollis, Queens, Emily Druby, Currents News.
The cops are offering a $2,500 reward for information leading to the capture of the vandal. If you know anything, call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. Shut down Rikers Island. That is what New York City's top religious leaders are demanding. They stood in front of the state Supreme Court this morning to make the case that closing the country's largest jail is a moral priority. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio said that it's his job to bring an end to the prison.
You know, it's very clear that the conditions there are poor. We need to do something, and unless we do it, it's going to stay the way it is. My job is to call out what we see to be wrong and immoral or subhuman conditions. All these different faiths see there's moral content almost in every public policy. A lot of people say, well, that's politics. It's not politics. Public policy is what people do and think, and our moral perspective is part of it. So there's clearly moral content here that we have to speak to.
The Rikers Island jail complex is notorious for violence and inhumane conditions. Thousands are held behind bars awaiting trial, often because they can't afford bail. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan said there's one big reason why the ministers of all faiths are passionate about shutting down Rikers and reforming the criminal justice system.
You know why? Because simply put, we have to. We gotta. God has told us. He's told us Jews, us Christians, our members of Islam, to bring compassion, mercy, and justice to those who are incarcerated.
There is a government plan to close Rikers, but City Hall says it won't happen until 4 new prisons are built, 1 in every borough except Staten Island. And that's facing stiff opposition from residents living near the proposed new facilities. Looking out for the prisoner and bringing criminal justice reform to society are key parts of being Catholic. As Cardinal Dolan said, it's in the Bible. The national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, joins us now. Christopher, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be back with you, Tamara.
Christopher, so why are Bishop DiMarzio and Cardinal Dolan banding together with other faith leaders in order to call for the closure of Rikers?
At the press conference today, Cardinal Dolan made it very clear. He said, as religious leaders, we're on the front lines. We visit prisoners in jail. We meet with their families and support them along the way. Once they, re-enter into society, we're the ones trying to support them. And he said, because of this, we have sort of a firsthand view of the situation. And when that firsthand view shows sort of these inhumane conditions as it has exhibited so far, we have to speak out on that. And so I think that's why you saw them out there today.
Criminal justice reform has been a big issue for the church, a very important one. What is the church doing to bring about action, and what has been accomplished?
Well, last November, the U.S. bishops issued a pastoral letter on racism, which was the first time the U.S. bishops in 40 years had spoken collectively on the issue of race. And one of the things they addressed in this issue was the fact that because of sort of the systemic racism that exists in our society, we now have a structural problem of overpopulation of our prisons, particularly when it comes to minority populations. So I think they're trying to shine a spotlight on that, as well as to sort of create a number of new initiatives on a local level to sort of help prisoners and their families. Last month I spoke with Bishop Bill Walk down in Florida, who's pioneering a new home for people when they come out of prison. I've seen a number of initiatives like that that sort of cropped up, and I think a lot of bishops hope that they see more of that to come.
Now, Pope Francis has famously dedicated Holy Thursday as a time when he visits prisons and he washes the feet of inmates. Today's call for the end of Rikers comes on the heels of the Holy Father weighing in on a similar topic. What did he have to say?
Well, yeah, the Pope met with ministers of the Italian Ministry of Justice and their families and guards from prisons, and he talked about the right to have hope. And he said, we can't lose this right to have hope. We have to foster this. He was meeting, with ministers of justice, saying, we, in our jobs as guards, we have to find ways in which we can still instill hope in these people. But then he turned and addressed the prisoners directly, and he said, you can't lose hope. And the Pope then went on to say, we've got to bring out an end to sort of this idea of parole for life. He said that eliminates hope. This is certainly an issue that's near and dear to the Pope's heart, and I think that's why we see him return to prison so often. Such
an important issue. I look forward to all of your coverage.
Thanks, Tamara.
Christopher White, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Tonight in Texas, thousands of people are trapped inside their own homes. The streets of Houston and Beaumont are flooded as Storm Imelda barrels through. People are calling it a repeat of Hurricane Harvey, only worse. Camila Bernal is on the ground as the rescue missions begin.
Some are making their way to higher ground as southeastern Texas experiences extremely dangerous flooding.
We look at the driveway, if you can't see the road, it's time to go.
It was just rising and rising, and we've been like this for hours.
Others hunkering down and riding out the storm.
We have furniture up on canned goods, on pots, on everything that we can get our hands on. It's going to be okay. It's just a house.
Parts of the area receiving nearly 3 feet of rain since Imelda made landfall on Tuesday, covering roads and trapping people in vehicles and homes. In Vidor, Texas, Michael Stevens says no one can evacuate his apartment complex because the water is too deep.
It's pretty, I'd say, catastrophic. You have cars that are in the apartment complex that are beginning to float. We're cut off from everybody. All the highways and roads are shut down.
In Beaumont, Texas, officials say they've received hundreds of calls for rescues. The National Weather Service and Houston officials telling residents, unless you already have flooding in your house, stay indoors.
I am going to encourage everyone, wherever you are, please stay where you are.
In Raywood, Texas, Camila Bernal, Currents News.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is under fire tonight for dressing up in both brownface and blackface on several occasions. The scandal erupted when an image emerged showing Trudeau wearing brownface at a 2001 party. Since then, more pictures and a video have been revealed showing him wearing black and brown makeup in other incidents. Late today, he went before TV cameras to apologize for the racist conduct and to answer the question of why he did it.
I think when we recognize, when we reflect on mistakes we made in the past, that's a question that we're always going to be asking. Why did we do that? Why did we think it was okay? Why did we think it was a good idea at the time? It wasn't a good idea. It was a terrible idea. It was something that minimizes and takes advantage of a reality that I have not had to live with, of being discriminated against, of being marginalized, of being judged for the color of my skin.
Trudeau has cast himself as a spokesman for liberal causes and an opponent of President Donald Trump on many issues. Trudeau will face Canada's voters in a national election at the end of next month. There's a big spike tonight in illnesses being linked to e-cigarettes. Now the feds are reporting at least 530 people have lung disease that experts say is related to vaping. That's a jump from 380 patients the CDC identified just last week. Most are young men under the age of 25. No single cause for the epidemic has been named. At least 7 people have died. There's a lot more news headed your way, including a Currents News exclusive.
A Catholic couple in Brooklyn living with a severe illness receives meals on a daily basis, and they say it's a lifesaver. I'm Tim Harfman. I'll share their emotional story coming up.
A Catholic civil rights leader weighs in on the controversy swirling around Mother Cabrini. The U.S. Navy says they are real, but shouldn't be called UFOs. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. $5.8 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease. The degenerative illness causes memory loss and an inability to function, which is why organizations like God's Love We Deliver are so important. They're the city's leading provider of meals for people with severe illnesses. Ahead of World Alzheimer's Day this Saturday, Currents News' Tim Harfman reports that the organization has become a godsend for one Brooklyn couple.
Vicky Javier takes care of her husband Santiago around the clock, ever since Santiago was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 22 years ago.
It's really very hard on me because physically he's here. But for a long, long time, he's not here anymore. Emotional, spiritual, mental. He doesn't know me anymore.
Santiago lost his memory just 2 years into his diagnosis, and he hasn't spoken a word in over a decade. Vicky is a retired teacher who taught Catholic school students for nearly 3 decades. She used to have to bring Santiago into the classroom with her because she didn't have another full-time caregiver. Now Vicky's been relieved of a big chore, cooking meals for her 81-year-old husband. The Catholic couple receives help from God's Love We Deliver, an organization providing nutritious meals for those suffering severe illnesses.
She doesn't have to worry about what Santiago is going to eat, if it's going to be healthy and nutritious, how much it's going to cost. These meals, they're free to Victoria and Santiago, but they're also made with love.
Over 7,700 patients, their family members, and caregivers receive the love-made meals in the metropolitan area. Vicky's freezer is stuffed with soup and other items.
It is very helpful for me. You don't know how I thank God for this.
Santiago was a diabetic with high blood pressure and cholesterol. Now, according to Vicky, the God's Love meals are making a difference in his health.
He stopped all the prescriptions because of the meals, I imagine. There's no other else.
Vicky also receives meals, but she gives them to her husband.
I don't really eat it because I save it for him instead of thinking of what to give him.
A sacrifice all thanks to volunteers delivering God's love. In Sunset Park, Brooklyn, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
New York wants to erect new statues to honor women who helped build the Big Apple. A poll of 300 candidates was conducted. Mother Cabrini, the patron saint of immigrants, finished first by a wide margin. But there'll be no statue of her. Rick Hinshaw is Communications Director of the Catholic League. He joins us now. Rick, thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be with you.
Mother Cabrini is the first naturalized U.S. citizen to be canonized. She devoted her life to the care of immigrants. She established schools and orphanages, bringing hope to a city filled with chaos and poverty at the end of the 19th century. Doesn't she deserve a statue?
Absolutely. When the name of this statue project is She Built New York, here's a woman who did so much at such a critical time in New York during the time of tremendous immigration to serve those immigrants. An immigrant herself, she cared for children, for orphans. She established schools. She helped so many immigrants get settled in New York and thrive and prepared future generations that did build the city that we know today. So she certainly, for a statue project called She Built New York, she did so much to build the New York that we know and love today.
Does the failure to recognize Mother Cabrini reflect an anti-Catholic attitude?
It certainly would seem that way. You know, unfortunately, when you look at some of the other people who were selected, some of them good choices, but some of them clearly part of a rather radical ideological agenda served by the mayor and the first lady of New York City. And part of that agenda has always been an intolerance for Catholicism, particularly faithful Catholicism, which Mother Cabrini certainly represents in a very positive way. She really lived the Church's social teachings in caring for people, but she served God by serving others, and there seems to be some discomfort with recognizing that.
There's going to be 6 new statues. Are there going to be any religious figures among that group?
But there is none recognized as a religious figure who served others and in doing so served God.
Now, Mother Cabrini got twice as many votes as anyone else. What can those who want a statue built in her honor do now to make a difference?
Well, it seems to me that the best thing would be for people to contact their city council representatives. You know, they can contact the First Lady, Charlene McRae, and Mayor de Blasio. But again, they seem so ideologically driven. It doesn't hurt to contact them, but I think city council members would recognize many of them would recognize the contributions of Mother Cabrini and really the injustice of snubbing her.
Now, there is an argument that Mother Cabrini does have many statues erected of her around the city, but there are at religious institutions. What do you have to say to them?
Oh, no, that's exactly right. There are, but this is something sponsored by New York City. And to fail to recognize somebody who has been so honored by private groups precisely because of her contributions, to put her aside. And remember that in addition here, some of the people you're honoring, one woman doctor who was a pro-abortion advocate. That's seen by some as heroic, but seen as, you know, by some of us as terribly negative. And here on the other side of that, you have this Catholic religious woman serving the poor, serving children, helping to nurture children. And at the very least, that pro-abortion selection could be balanced by a statue to Mother Cabrini.
Rick Henshaw, Communications Director of the Catholic League. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
The Italian Ministry of the Diocese of Brooklyn is organizing a march and a mass to honor the contributions Mother Cabrini made to build the city. The ceremonies will take place Sunday, October 6th, with a procession from Brooklyn's Mother Cabrini Park to Mass at Sacred Heart's St. Stephen Church. Pick up a copy of the tablet to find out all the details. The destruction from Hurricane Dorian has caused the people of the Bahamas to turn to God. The island conducted a national prayer service yesterday to honor those who have suffered from the storm.
Oh God, the Bible tells us that you are the God of all comfort. Those who have gone through the storm, those who've lost loved ones in the storm or possessions, those whose relatives or friends have gone through the storm, and let your healing wash over them all.
The death toll from Dorian stands at 50, but more than 1,000 people are still missing. The Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, is also asking for donations for the victims of Hurricane Dorian. He's requesting that every parish in the diocese take up a voluntary monetary collection next weekend, September 21st. All donations collected will be sent to the Archdiocese of Nassau. If you'd like to make a donation directly to the diocese, you can make checks payable to the Compostela Fund and write Bahamas in the memo section. The mailing address for those checks is Compostela Fund, 310 Prospect Park West in Brooklyn, zip code 11215. The address is also listed on thetablet.org. Still to come on Currents News. This fighter pilot footage was leaked years ago, but the United States Navy is just admitting that the things you see are actually mysterious objects. And right now, they have no explanation. And please check out one of the latest features in the tablet, our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments, such as baptism, First Communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. We'll be right back. Like something out of the Twilight Zone, videos showing mysterious objects that the United States Navy is now saying are real. Those images, first released in 2017 by the New York Times, have everyone asking the same question: what are these things? Is God's creation confined to planet Earth? And while the Navy says it still doesn't exactly know what the objects are, they are finally acknowledging the videos for the first time. Currents News' Michelle Powers has the story.
It's rotating. Images of that rotating thing captured by U.S. Navy aircraft, sensors locking in on the target. Commander David Fravor saw it firsthand during a training mission, describing it like a 40-foot-long tic-tac, maneuvering rapidly and changing direction.
And as we both looked out the right side of our airplane, we saw a disturbance in the water and a white object, oblong, pointing north.
The object was first sighted in 2004, then similar objects again in 2015. Footage of the sightings, declassified by the military, weren't made public until December 2017 by the New York Times and a group that researches UFOs. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude.
This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
The UFO reports were first investigated by a secret $22 million program, part of the Defense Department budget. The program has since been shut down, but it was run by a military intelligence official who says they found compelling evidence that we, quote, may not be alone. Michelle Powers, Currents News.
That is Currents News. I'm Tamara Lane. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.